Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I want to share with you the books and resources we are using to put together a unit study on Hedge. I also want to encourage you to check the description box below to find out more information about when this curriculum is going to be released. It is going to be a Hedge curriculum that is intended for all audiences. I'm really excited about this. I am working in collaboration with other curriculum writers and homeschoolers. And so if you'd like to find out more information about that, please check the description box below. And that's going to be available for you if you wish to do a unit study on Hedge. And if you do not want to get all of the resources that I'm sharing with you today, that is a complete curriculum that will have everything that you need in order to do this. Now, the resources that I am sharing with you today are not secular resources to the best of my knowledge. They have been written by Muslims for a Muslim audience, but as I have gone through a lot of the books that we have used for our other unit studies, like on the Golden Age of Islam, or even on Ramadan, I find that a lot of the resources that are out there that are secular aren't that well done. And so I do prefer using ones that are written for a Muslim audience. So I want to share that with you, share with you the pros and cons of using these kinds of resources if you are not a Muslim, and how you can best source the materials that are going to work best for your family, for your needs, for your classroom, for your homeschool, whatever environment you are teaching in. So the things that I want to share with you today are a collection of a few books. Some are brand new to me. They were recommended by other homeschoolers and educators. We haven't used them yet. So I do encourage you to check the review video. It's at the very bottom of the playlist. And that link is also in the description box below. That way you can see how we enjoyed these resources, and which books we got through, how we like them, what we plan to use again in the future, and also alternative resources if these ones didn't work out. So the first books I want to share with you are ones that we have had in our homeschool for years. This first one is called Tell Me About Hedge. This is by Good Word Publishers, and it is by Seni Yasnain Khan. And I apologize if I have mispronounced that name or his name. So these books, there are many in the series, and I really, really like them. There are also Tell Me About Musa, Tell Me About Yusuf, and a few others that the titles escape me right now. So the reason why I like these books so much is that they're written in a really beautiful narrative kind of way, in a very like a story way, but it's still nonfiction. It also comes with some really beautiful illustrations, and some of the books, and especially this one, come also with some photographs. I'm less interested in the photographs. I do prefer the illustrations, especially since some of these scenarios are historical, and so you're not going to find photographs that depict something that's historical from hundreds or thousands of years ago. So I do appreciate the illustrations. However, I do think that it is important to have some photographs included in a book like this so that we have some concrete examples of what it looks like today. I also like this book because on the sides of a lot of the pages are little captions that give you a little bit more details about the situation, about the story, about the history, about the geography. And I appreciate those bits, even though I prefer to just read the story, and then if I have older students or from my own personal knowledge, then I'll read these extra captions. They are not part of the story necessarily, so they do interrupt the flow of the story. So I usually wait till the end of the page or at the end of a collection of pages before I read these sections. So I do highly recommend these books. We have really enjoyed them. I love the illustrations. I find them to be really well written. They are a longer book. They're still called, in my opinion, a picture book, but they're going to be for, I think, all of elementary, even into junior high level as far as the content. We use them as read aloud selections, so I'm not assigning my children these books. We will read them aloud, and on occasion we will do lessons associated with these books, but primarily for the way that we've used them in the past, at least we have just read them. Maybe we've talked about them, but we haven't done any concrete lessons with them. That may change with this unit, but for the most part, I find that a lot of these books, their value is in reading about them, maybe talking about them, maybe doing some hands-on projects, but not necessarily needing to do lesson activity with them. However, the lesson activities that we tend to do, or the lessons that we tend to do with our books, usually include a written or an oral narration and an illustration. They don't include a vocabulary list or questions, trivia, or fill in the blank. That's not the kind of lessons that I typically gravitate towards. And so if that is something that you wanted to do as part of the lesson, you could certainly include those kinds of questions at the end of your reading, but they are not included in this book. The next book I want to share with you, actually, I have some reservations about. Back when I first started homeschooling back in 2003, soon after I started homeschooling, I got this book. I don't actually remember when it was published, so I can't say that I got it right when I started homeschooling, but I will tell you right now when this book was published. 2002. So shortly after we started homeschooling, I found this book and we got it. And at first, I had mixed feelings about it, but I still used it because it was one of the only books at the time, to the best of my knowledge, that included a somewhat of a Waldorf inspired approach to the celebrations and festivities associated with Islam. However, there are a lot of things in here that don't sit well with me personally, that I think contradict some aspects of Islam. So I would say that depending on your understanding of Islam, number one, you can choose activities and stories accordingly. And if you are not Muslim, then I would say that you may consider double checking some of the information that is included in this book. And also bear in mind that within the religion, there are scholars who have differing opinions and Muslims who practice differently. So you may not find consensus in a particular subject area, particular ruling, or a particular bit of information. So I just want to put that out there. Now, I will still resource this book. I haven't for a really long time, but I would still resource this book. And also, when I first started homeschooling, it was really helpful for me to see how to bring to life ideas that I had in my head or things that I wanted to bring to the children, but I didn't really have an avenue to do so. It was still early on in our homeschooling journey. It was still early on in my reintroduction to the Waldorf philosophy. And so I did value having a book like this. The next book I want to show you from my personal collection before I dive into the new books that I got for this unit is called The Prophets of Allah. This is volume 2. It comes with 5 volumes. This is by Iqra International Education Foundation. I do hope these books are still available. They're not perfect. However, I do really value the efforts that authors and publishers have made and still continue to make in order to bring content for a Muslim audience. Sometimes when there isn't a lot available, we tend to take whatever there is, whether it is high quality or not, whether we like it or not, whether we gravitate towards that particular style or not, because there isn't a lot available. So these books were gifted to us many, many years ago, and I am so thankful for them. They go through all of the previous prophets that are known to us, and they are the stories of their lives. However, it appears that there may be some aspects of embellishment in these stories, in the sense that we have a very limited amount of information that we get from the Quran about these previous prophets. And it is the work of the scholars and the historians to bring context to that, to understand the verses in the Quran, to understand the Arabic language, the geography of the area, and all of that brings these stories to life. So there may be some differences of opinion about certain aspects of the story. So I do want to put that out there. However, I still find these to be really valuable resources. There are some aspects of the writing that I disagree with, that on occasion I will just take a pen to, attributing humanistic aspects to the creator. That's something that doesn't sit well with me, even though I would expect that it wasn't intentional. It was just something that I'm sensitive to. Other than that, I think that the series is well done, despite my reservations about them. The illustrations are in line with the more conservative view of illustrations from the Islamic perspective. You typically, and there are different authors and illustrators for each of these books, but you're typically not going to find people, and if you do find them, they're not going to have their faces drawn in. You can see there's a lot more landscape and other images, but you're not going to see a lot of people. You're definitely not going to see the previous prophets. And then if you do see a person, let me see if I can find one for you. I think I already skipped it. You're not going to see their faces, and that's something, like for instance in this illustration, that's something that I appreciate, or like in this one as well, that I appreciate that the illustrators have done in order to adhere to a more conservative view about illustrations for people and animals. You're still going to see them, but I think it's done in a respectful manner. Okay, so we have included book 2 specifically. Let me just tell you the contents for book 2, because in book 2, there are 5 different previous prophets that are mentioned in here, and we are specifically looking at Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and Prophet Ismail. And then we can also, I think it's of value to go through the lineage of these prophets as well, not just for your own personal information, but also for contextual information, because there is important information related to the sons of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and the tribes that came about after, where they were located, and the history that then comes up until the birth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so that's something that you're going to find in these books that are written for Muslims, by Muslims for Muslims, is that you're going to find the Arabic words that, or the translation of those Arabic words that are associated with the different people, the different prophets rather. And so that's something that in a secular book you're not going to see. And so when you see that in a book that's been written for Muslims, it's because there are ways that we honor our previous prophets and our prophet, and the way we honor just other members of the community back then, the companions, or the way that we refer to the creator. There are just ways to honor those people, and they're specific to Islam in some ways. And so you're going to find that in the books. So I have a number of new books that were recommended to me by the co-author of the curriculum on Hedge. And I am so appreciative of what is available out there, and also about those of you who are more familiar with the Islamic books and sharing them with me. I really do appreciate that, because the books that we have, sometimes they may be out of print or out of date, no longer available, and they were what was available to me almost 20 years ago. And so a lot has happened in these last couple of decades to bring about more books, more selections, more variety in the resources for both a Muslim audience and for a general audience. So I have 5 books to share with you here, and more on the way. And so you can see a complete list of the books for this unit on the blog post that accompanies this video. You can find that link down in the description box below. And then you can also find all of the projects that we are doing for this unit, as well as the curriculum for this unit on that blog post. And as we continue to do more projects, they will always be on that one blog post, as well as any of the tutorials that we're doing for this unit, as well as the review video. You can find that on the video playlist, and that link is down in the description box below. So these books are ones that we haven't yet read. So to find how we like them and whether I recommend them, please check the review video at the end of this unit. You can find that link down in the description box below. The Sacrifice of Ismail, the Eid-al-Adha story. This is my first view at a lot of these books, and I'm a little bit more on the picky side when it comes to illustrations and the content and even just the overall quality of the book. All of that is kind of dispensed with because there is such, for me currently right now, such a limited choice in the books that are available for us for this topic area. The other thing is that this is a really simple book, and my children now, the ones that I'm homeschooling, are 10 and 14. So this would definitely not appeal to my 14-year-old because he is beyond picture books. He needs more content, high school and adult content. So this is going to be suitable for anywhere from kindergarten through about middle school. I would say 6th grade is probably the limit for this particular book. However, I do believe it is my personal philosophy that when you have children between kindergarten and 8th grade, and you have a variety of ages that you're teaching, that you can definitely utilize with success picture books with older children, as long as you maybe are using them for the younger children and the older children are just participating and listening, but not really saying, hey, this is the book for you, because that could be a little bit patronizing for an older student. But I do find that these books, I like picture books for their content, for their pictures. I like them also for their ability to simplify maybe a more challenging topic area. And as long as they're not dumbed down, I don't really appreciate the patronizing aspect of some books for young students. But as long as the content is of a good quality and high caliber, then I think that they are suitable for many ages, even for adults. So this seems like a really simple, quick picture book to read and gives you a nice overview of this historical situation. I am Hedge. There are actually a lot of books in this series, and it is a really, really simple picture book. I would put this at preschool, toddler, kindergarten, first, maybe 2nd grade. It looks really simple. Well, the illustrations are stunning. Look at that. That's so beautiful. I still will use these with my daughter, but if you were, I still would, but at the same time, I'm not looking specifically for these kinds of resources only because she's only getting older. If you have really young children, then I think these kinds of resources are golden because you can continue to use them year after year as your children grow, as you have other children. So I do really value these kinds of resources. So I'm really, really charmed by the illustrations. I really love all the colors. It's just really beautiful. Tales of the Prophets, Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Yusuf. I was kind of curious about this book. It seemed, I think, that this was independently published, and while I don't have a problem with that necessarily, going with, and I actually cannot confirm that, but going with a reputable publishing house sometimes, in my opinion, possibly gives you more reputable information because there's oversight, but not to undermine that someone couldn't still self-publish and have high quality work. I haven't read this yet to do my own comparison of it, just to put it out there. I've said this before, but it's worth saying over and over and over again that I am not a Muslim scholar. I am a student. I'll forever be a student and a homeschooler. And so this is something that, you know, to the best of my knowledge, I can share with you my impressions of a book. But at the same time, if there are glaring errors, then it is of value to have a scholar review the work. And I'm only just saying that for all of the books, not this one in particular, that's something that is something to consider. I don't really care for the illustrations, to be honest. I don't like the ones that are much more lifelike, and yeah, I'm concerned about the lifelike photographs or illustrations that are included here. So I will have to review this book, read it through, and give you a more comprehensive review about this book. So the way that we put together our units is that I will source books online. For most of our homeschooling needs, the bookstores that I have been gravitating towards in the past were Rainbow Resource. I've shifted to other bookstores. They are a general homeschooling vendor, but I've shifted to Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, as well as Amazon is always a place to find a variety of things. And for our Islamic books needs, I like Siraj Bookstore and the Noor Art and any of the books that are from Good Word publishers. So those are some of the places that I end up finding my books. This is one that I found on Amazon. And when I am putting together our units, I will just collect usually more than we actually need. And that way we can go through it. And then at the end of it, I know the things that are of value that I want to use again and the things that didn't work out so well. Young Explorers' Adventures in Mecca. This, I was surprised. The problem is with a lot of books is that you really just can't see the insides. So I love the front cover, but the inside's a little bit different. It has both illustrations as well as photographs, and it seems like it's set up a little bit more like a textbook versus, say, a picture book or a storybook. And so, and I could be wrong, there could be more story aspects of it. Like the beginning part seems like it's a little bit more of a story aspect. And then there's a lot more content as you get into exploring the areas around Mecca and the different sites and the different historical situations that happened. So it also includes some questions at the end of each of these chapters. So it is written in a way that seems like it's more academic and has possibly a better usage in a classroom setting or in a homeschool setting versus just as a storybook, as a read aloud. And so if you want that as part of the resources that you're looking for, this book definitely includes it. It's also a really lengthy book. It's coming in at over 60 pages. And so you're getting a lot of information and content. You can see that the font is a good size, not too small, definitely not big like you might find for like a younger reader. It does include a lot of illustrations and pictures throughout, but you can see that there is also a ton of content in here. These aren't the kinds of books that I necessarily would like to go for. If I was looking at something on Hedge, I'm still kind of partial to this book because of the way that it's illustrated and written. However, I think that it is of value to have a variety of resources because each one is going to appeal to a different type of student or a different person. It's going to provide maybe information that one book doesn't have over another one and different styles. Okay, so let's go on to the last book before I show you the projects that we have intended for this unit. This one is called Going to Mecca. And this is like such a minor thing, but I prefer, because of the history of the spelling, I prefer the spelling that is M-A-K-K-A-H versus M-E-C-C-A. There is some relevance and not context, but there is some significance to using this spelling over this spelling. So just want to put that out there, not judging the book because of the spelling, but the Islamic spelling, I'm going to say, is this spelling, okay? Because this one means something else. Okay, so this book, initially, these are not the illustrations that I would typically go for. However, I am really enjoying them. This looks like a really simple, fast, wonderful picture book to have along with all the other picture books that you might have, but specifically to use during the month of Dhu-al-Hijjah or with your Hajj Unit Study, or just to use as your opening activities alongside other lessons or main lesson blocks that might coordinate with the month of Dhu-al-Hijjah. I think this would be a really nice addition. Again, I think that this would work really well for anywhere from toddlerhood all the way to young elementary. I think that it might be a little bit beyond the appeal of, say, an upper elementary child. But once again, when you're homeschooling multiple children, I think that this could coordinate really well in a unit that way. Okay, so those are the books and resources, let me share with you a couple of the projects that we have done and that we have planned. Making your own little miniaturized Kaaba with either landscape around, or in our case, little peg dolls, is really simple. I do want to say, however, that I do not know if this contradicts like an Islamic principle or teaching to make a miniaturized Kaaba for the sake of education or play. If this is offensive to some of you, I do apologize. If it is not acceptable, I also apologize. And if I do come across more information regarding this, it will be posted. And so you can check the description box below for any updates on whether it is suitable to create your own little miniaturized Kaaba for the sake of education and for play. So I made this really simply out of a box that we had. The dimensions are not to scale. You can see that our little peg dolls, even the small ones, are quite large compared to the size of the Kaaba. I also used some gold washi tape around the edges and some acrylic paint to paint it. I did try to include our own little black stone here, and it's super simple. It is by no means complicated or really intricate. So you can very simply make this structure out of all of the religious or historical structures on this whole entire planet. I do believe that making a miniaturized Kaaba is the easiest. So I encourage you to try it. It is unlike any other structure in its simplicity and in its beauty and in its significance. Okay, so we have made some peg dolls. We have them in their ihram as well as not. And so we made these several years ago, and since then I have gotten some feedback on what they can wear as well for the women, because I think I have the women just in black and white, but I am told that they can wear any color and that to include other colors in them as well. So we made a lot of them. They're very simple to make. You can make them with some wool. You can just make them painted. You have them in different sizes, from the medium to the large. There are also female shaped peg dolls. I prefer just to use the standard shape for both the men and the women. You can use watercolor paints. You can use acrylic paints. You can use felt. I've used the 100% wool felt and a glue gun. If you've got really young children, I would caution you against using toxic materials for the paint. And so I have preferred using the wool for the young children. However, you do need to be mindful. These are choking hazards for really young children. So be very careful if you've got young toddlers and babies as well. And even if you have older children who still put a lot of things in their mouths, then please be careful with the materials that you use in order to paint or seal them. So this is one project that we did years ago that we will have out on our table, and we can use it. We can use the peg dolls in order to recreate or mimic the different aspects of Hedge, like the different things that you do during Hedge. Okay, so some of the things that we have planned, I want to share with you one of the big projects that we have planned for this year. And we are going to recreate a model of the different sites within Hedge, but much smaller, using our oven-baked polymer clay. This is lightweight clay. This is my favorite polymer clay to use. It stays soft. It's very easy to use. It bakes hard. You can paint it, and even if you leave it out for a while, it still stays really soft. I've left a package unsealed. Like once we had opened it, I had left it open for a year and it was still soft. And then of course it bakes up hard. It's really easy to bake, and then you can paint it. And my favorite part is that it's very, very, very easy to use for young children. So this is my favorite polymer clay. And you will need probably more than one package. This is also really expensive, partly because you get a lot more than those small squares, and partly because it's just an awesome product. So you may need to have more than one in order to do the project that I'm about to tell you about, or you can make it very small and you just use one package, or you can use a mold, like say a piece of cardboard to mold the different pieces and then cover it with the clay, bake it, and then remove the mold so that you're not using so much clay. So you have a couple of options. Basically, you want to make the Kaaba, Safa and Marwa, the Jamarat, and Arafah, and all the other locations for the different parts of Hedge, and I want to make them large enough so that we can use the tiniest of the peg dolls as little pilgrims, or source even smaller, not peg dolls, but maybe smaller figures. However, because this is intended for children, you don't want it to be too small. You want it to be big enough where they can easily maneuver the pieces throughout your little model. If you don't have access to the polymer clay, and I just use simple acrylics to paint them, I am not that well versed in the different qualities of acrylic paint, so this is just one that we picked up to go along with our polymer clay. But if you do not want to use polymer clay, you can also use regular clay. It will, if you don't fire it, it will dry and possibly crack, but it is a suitable alternative if you wish to do that. We've done that in the past with other of our history units. We've used the clay in order to create like an ancient village with different little houses and a street and everything. And that worked well enough, but it is a lot more fragile. Once you bake your oven baked clay, it is hard, it is sturdy, and you can paint it. So that works out really well. So that is the one major project that we have scheduled for this unit, but there will be more projects. You can find all of the projects associated with this unit on the playlist. Just because you're seeing, say, 20 projects doesn't mean you have to do them all in one year. One of the beautiful things about this is that every year you can add another project to your activities and revisit the old ones that you've already made, because some of them can be time consuming, albeit they're very educational and enjoyable for the children. Okay, I think that was it. I hope this was a helpful video for you. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video for more information. You can find that link down in the description box below. If you'd like to see some of the projects that we're doing for this unit, you can tap on the screen right now. And if you have great resources you want to share with me, please leave them down in the comment section below. If you'd like to see how we are homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.